All right, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. We're going to be discussing how we can help you better support the surge in remote working, as well as enhance EHR performance for everyone here in healthcare IT today. As way of introductions, my name is Stacy and I'm with the marketing department here at Goliath, and I'll also be joined with our senior technical consultant, Yemi Ladiju, who will be diving deep into the different ways that we can help and ensure that regardless of whether your healthcare staff is working on site in the health system or remote, they can have seamless access to their EHR systems, that you can be notified if there's issues with performance, as well as provide management levels of reports that can track productivity for those remote workers. Now, before I jump in too far, I wanted to go ahead and just kind of level set with what you should be able to expect today. So first, we're going to talk through a little bit about some of the conditions that many are facing today in health IT. Then we're going to go ahead and walk through several different demos that highlight how purpose-built tools that focus on monitoring and troubleshooting the entire end user experience can assist you in these scenarios. Throughout the time today, if you have any questions, please submit them in the question box and we'll answer them throughout, or make sure we get to them at the end. And I know one of those questions often is around the recording. And yes, within 24 hours, you'll receive a recording of this webinar that will be in your inbox. The only last housekeeping item is there will be a short survey at the end. And so if you get that survey, please take a minute to fill it out. It will take you no longer than 60 seconds. And getting that information really ensures that we're providing the best information back to the community. So with that, I did want to spend just one slide talking about Goliath's unique value in health IT. So probably it was about 6 years ago where we took our main core product that was helping a lot of different industries, and we really built a focused area just for healthcare. We did this because in healthcare, there's a natural fit for our product that monitors and troubleshoots that overall end user experience, regardless of where IT workloads are located, users are located. And a lot of the native automation and intelligence that's embedded in our product are the things that allow our customers to come back and tell us it's almost as if they've hired 2 to 3 full-time troubleshooting experts that are working 24/7, 365 days a week. In fact, I had a customer once tell me it's almost as if they've hired this full-time expert and they never take a lunch break, there's never a vacation, they never go home, and they never complain about their hours. Now, in addition then to our core product and why we can provide that value is we've really invested in both technical and business integrations with all of the major EHR vendors. So we work with Cerner, Epic, Allscripts, Meditech. And like I said, it's not just technical integrations, it's also business partnerships. So for example, if you're a Cerner customer, Cerner actually resells our technology. We also are the only purpose-built monitoring tool that can be deployed in Cerner RHO, so we can give you a full holistic view across the performance of not only Cerner RHO that's hosted, but also your on-premise IT delivery infrastructure, as well as end-user behavior to really isolate any type of root cause around slow session performance, low logons, other performance factors that negatively impact that experience. For Epic, we are a member of the App Orchard program, and what this means is we have a technical partnership with them where we integrate into System Pulse and can pull data into our system to really ease troubleshooting for you. That means that you can go to their site and actually download our app directly from their program. And it also means that we've got customers that have validated the use of that entire application. So with that, then, I'm going to kind of move into the scenario, but I wanted to provide you some background around Goliath. So as we talk to health systems today, we hear a myriad of frustrating questions that are really being imposed upon healthcare IT departments. And a lot of these questions you'll see will start with remote workers, because ever since COVID-19 has begun and the stay-at-home order, there's been more and more health systems that are asking their staff to work remotely, whether it's back office staff, whether it's clinicians providing telehealth. There's a lot more of that remote working. And this is not typical of a health system. So management is asking health IT, are you sure that everyone can work remotely? How do we know that they all have proper access to the EHR system? In fact, just yesterday, I was listening into a call with one of our customers. They're a university hospital in the Midwest. And over the past 2 weeks, they've enabled over 5,000 workers to work from home. And they needed to confirm that these workers, in fact, did have access to Epic through their Citrix infrastructure. And they wanted to know, were they having logon problems? Were they having slow session performance? Or were they having a similar experience as if they were located in the hospital? Now, I'm not going to read through all of these questions, but what you can see, and I bet many are coming to you, is that in this scenario, whether it's because the EHR system has to be performing at optimal speed and performance because healthcare is on the front line of this pandemic, or you're supporting that remote worker initiative, the questions just keep coming in and often are around, what is performance? How do we get ahead of issues? How can I ensure that my employees can access the EHR applications that they need? And how can I get ahead of problems and actually prevent them from actually happening? And so in order to do this, one of the things I wanted to highlight, and I'm happy to provide this slide after the call with you today, is the reason these questions are not easy to answer, and I'm sure many of you get frustrated on the phone, is in order to deliver that experience to your end user, to the clinician or medical staff, there's probably over 15 vendors that must work flawlessly and in concert to deliver that user experience. And you, maybe the Citrix admin, the VMware Horizon admin, or even the application owner, do not necessarily have control over all these vendors. So when you think about it, you've got multiple users. They are logging in from multiple locations. They might be different acute facilities, different hospitals from home. Each of them have different devices. They're kicking off different ICA sessions. They have different network connections. If they're working from home, what's their home Wi-Fi? What's their WAN bandwidth? Are they working from a hotspot? Are they in the office and using networking? And inside the health system, there's many different networks that people can be joining. Is it a public Wi-Fi network that they're interacting with? So even here, you think about all the different variables, starting with end user behavior and their endpoint, all the way now through that connectivity stream of where they're at that can impact that user experience. From there then, let's say you're using Citrix. You've got NetScaler Gateway, storefront services, the broker delivery services, the actual applications on the desktop, which include access to all the EHR applications and all of these separate applications that might be associated with that EHR. You have the backend systems from the licensing server, profile servers, Active Directory, and under there you have your hypervisor host. And if you're Citrix, you might be using Hyper-V or VMware vSphere or other hypervisors that are not even from the same vendor. So when you look holistically, this isn't even everything, but you have up to almost 15 vendors and it all has to work flawlessly. So when a user does complain that they can't log into the EHR application or their performance is too slow, it's not an answer that you can quickly respond to, because without a single pane of glass that can give you a holistic view of all of this, you often are just hunting and pecking in the dark. So what you need is a purpose-built tool that can identify quickly exactly where the issue is. And even though someone says Epic is slow, Meditech is slow, Cerner is slow, it has nothing to do with that actual application. It could be something like Active Directory that's causing the error. Now in this next slide, it just shows you again the next level of granularity, because it's not just about the 15 vendors working together. There's also over 250 potential failure points across all IT elements and conditions that could cause poor performance or slowness. So even looking at Active Directory, it's not just that Active Directory is down, it could be a user authentication problem, a problem within group policy. And within group policy, there's 50 other errors that could happen. Do you actually have the right printer mask or the right driver mask? It could be registry corruption. So again, when you look holistically, you've got to look at the device and the endpoint, and especially in healthcare, you've got a lot of third-party peripheral devices coming in through the USB, like handheld scanners and others. You've got to look at that connection, whether it be inside the health system or from a remote location. And so in order to best support those questions that you're being asked, you as the administrator may realize the complexity, but I shared these two slides to really enable you to talk with your management team on why those questions are not easy to answer. And the only way that you're going to provide great answers to those questions is if you have a purpose-built tool that will monitor, troubleshoot, and document the entire end user experience. And that tool must allow you to anticipate issues so that you have an early warning system that will test the entire delivery infrastructure as well as your EHR applications, alerting you if there is an issue before end users ever complain. You need a tool that provides deep and broad metrics that allow you to isolate root cause of performance before remote workers or physicians on site, again, can really complain or impact their work too negatively. And finally, you need a tool that's going to document, something that's going to provide historical reports, analytics, and objective evidence so that when you do put permanent fixed solutions in place, you can prove that it has impacted performance positively. Also, by having this data, and we're going to show this later on, you can foster collaborative conversations with other IT teams, like the storage team, the network team, other vendors. So you as an IT administrator in Citrix can talk to a Cerner, an Epic, a Meditech, and Allscripts, as well as management and end users. And then because of the surge of remote working, you also need a tool that's really going to highlight, are my remote workers being productive? Do they have the level of access they need in order to get their job done? And again, in healthcare, it's critical that when you look at a tool that provides you the ability to anticipate, troubleshoot, and document the entire end user experience, that end user experience includes specific capabilities for those major EHR modules, because that's what the end user sees, and that's where they identify issues. It's your responsibility from all of that activity underneath to be able to anticipate, troubleshoot, and document. So with that, let's go into really criteria number one, and I'm going to just talk only for another 30 seconds, and then I'm going to turn it over to Yemi to really give a demonstration around this topic. And so for the idea of anticipate, we here at Goliath actually built an early warning system because we were working with Universal Health Services. And you might know them. They're a large health system with over 35 acute facilities across the globe, across the US, and actually 350 across the globe. And what they were doing is they would actually have IT staff go early morning, like 5 a.m., into every hospital and log in and make sure that they could execute the applications that the nurses, the clinicians, the back office staff needed. Now, the challenge with that, as you know, health systems are available 24/7. So even going in at 5 a.m., they still were not finding everything. It was also a very manual process. And everyone that went in, because it was rotated, they ran different scripts, they had different testing preferences, so a lot was being missed. So from that need, we created an early warning system that would log in as the end user, go through the entire scenario of opening the applications, and record at every point in time what the logon process looked like, what the application load time looked like. And note that we would be able to alert IT if there was any issues so that IT could proactively address those issues before other users logged in. And so we were able to pinpoint the exact failure point and document those results so that permanent fix actions could be taken. So with that, Yemi, I'm going to turn it over to you to show a demonstration on how this early warning system works.
Thanks, Stacy. And before I dive into the technology, I wanted to stop for a second and just talk about how this technology is deployed. So what I have here on the screen is a typical deployment of this technology. And as Stacy mentioned, it's almost like sending an admin to each of the different hospital locations. It's going to be just dedicated to logging on and launching the applications, whether it's Epic, Cerner, or any other EHR, whether it's delivered by Citrix or maybe even VMware Horizon. And it's just going to be logging on and launching, making sure that there's a successful presentation. It's going to be doing this 24/7 from those locations. The technology is typically deployed on a laptop, on a virtual machine, where it's actually just executing these launches and then sending over the results to the Goliath console. So to give you some perspective as to what's actually taking place on that laptop or VM at the different locations, I have a quick video here showing the application availability monitor. That's what we call this technology, launching an Epic session. So from that VM or laptop at that particular location, the technology is going to open up a web browser to the NetScaler or storefront page. It's able to log in the same way an end user would. It can accept any security statements and things like that. It can navigate the storefront page after it's confirmed that it's loaded, and then start launching these applications on a scheduled basis. It's going to wait and make sure that there is a successful presentation of whatever application that your user wants to log into, and then logs off. Now, this effectively is testing all of those different pieces that Stacy went over earlier in the call. And if there's an issue with any step of that process, IT now gets a real-time alert, and they can analyze each one of the launches from this page here, which is the Application Availability Analysis tab. Quickly, this is the central management and configuration console for this technology. It allows you to monitor and configure basically all of the launches that you're monitoring with this technology. And the page is broken down into two sections. You have the top section that shows you a high-level dashboard of all the launches taking place. So you can see here the blue bars represent the launch times, and then the trend line here is the overall availability. Keep in mind that you can launch any Citrix delivered applications as well as your EHR applications. And you can filter based on the date range here at the top of the screen, based on the locations that these launches are taking place from, and also based on the launches, the applications and desktops that are being launched. Now, the bottom section, this is typically where our customers go when there is a failure. There's an issue with a particular launch. IT has now gotten an alert saying that users will not have access to this particular application. Then they can look in and drill into exactly what's causing that. So you can see here the date and times of the launches that are taking place, the applications and desktops that were being launched, where they were being launched from, and ultimately whether those launches were successful or they failed. We actually had a large Epic customer of ours get an alert at about 4:30 in the morning that one of the critical applications was not enumerating on the storefront page. So in their case, they got the alert. They were able to sort of come over to this screen, identify the application that was failing to launch, then click on the application, and they now get screenshots of each step of the process. So they were able to flip over to the storefront page and determine, okay, it looks like this particular application can confirm that this application was not enumerating. And then they took it up with the Citrix team to have it published so that when users started their workday at about 8 a.m. in the morning, they didn't run into these issues. And we were able to save them, I think, about 40,000 hours of downtime. I wanted to point out this particular screenshot here because it shows you, the specific error message that would possibly show up to the end user in the case they encountered this failure. And from an Epic perspective, we actually have here an Epic Hyperspace launch, successful launch. So you can see how our customers are able to leverage this on a daily basis to ensure that not only users have access to the environment, but to document this historically and prove to management and anyone else of the availability of the system. So with that, I'll pass it over to Stacy to talk about the next criteria.
Great, thank you, Yemi. So criteria number 2 is really around troubleshooting. And right now, with the urgency in healthcare, with many of clinicians being on the front line of this pandemic, as well as remote working increasing, I suspect that like many of our customers, many of you on the phone are seeing an increase in amount of tickets that are coming through. And responding to those tickets are getting even more challenging because you really need, again, a tool that's going to provide deep and broad metrics that are correlating information across multiple areas, looking at the endpoint, end user behavior, connection speed, service provider, diving deep into the ICA HDX or the PC over IP blast protocol with VMware, looking at the EHR application, and most importantly, providing empirical evidence of where that issue is so that you can resolve them quickly. And part of the challenge is identifying even where to put the ticket into. Is it a network issue? Is it a home office issue? Is it because of the end user behavior? Is it something within the underlying infrastructure or Active Directory? So I'm going to turn it over to Yemi, and he's going to talk through a scenario Well, we had one of our customers, and they actually are now providing telehealth. And so for their clinicians, this is really new. And it was the first time that they were providing telehealth. And for them, they were complaining that their EHR application they were using, Cerner, was slow, and it was causing delays and negatively impacting patient care. And this clinician was especially frustrated because telehealth was new to him, and it was really new for the patients that haven't really been experiencing this. So in this time of new environments and challenges, everyone is more anxious. So they needed this issue resolved very quickly. And this quickly got escalated because there was a concern that if even a few patients have a bad experience with telehealth, it's going to negatively impact the future, which is where the hospital was already looking to invest before this pandemic. So Yemi, with that, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thanks, Stacy. So, as an IT administrator in that sort of situation where not only are you getting calls from users and very important users in the environment, you're also getting management, pressure from management to get this issue solved, or at least to have information as to why this issue is happening. From that perspective, if let's say I'm that IT administrator or Citrix administrator, I would flip over to this screen here. This is the Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop Session Display. And this is where I'm able to see all of the sessions in the entire environment. So I can, come over here and pull back historic sessions. So in the technology, we actually don't average or roll up any information we collect. And we also give our customers the ability to choose how long they keep the information for. So I have the ability to come over here and pull back historic sessions. So maybe this user is having an issue, is complaining about an issue from yesterday or a week before. I can pull that back and still get the same amount of granularity inside of this session. I can also sort by any one of these tabs here. So if I'm looking for, let's say, the highest logon duration, if I'm looking for maybe a certain receiver version, or if I'm looking for something with like ICA latency or anything like that, I can sort. I can also drill into them and actually do some deeper filtering if I need to. So ultimately giving me the ability to find those sessions very quickly. I also have this quick filter that allows me to search for anything in text on the screen. So if I'm looking for maybe a Mac user, if I'm looking for, let's say, a particular user's name, I can search for the user, isolate the session, and then drill into it. So let's take, for instance, a particular session. I find a session, I click on this doctor session, right? Now I get a pop-up of about 7 or 8 tabs giving me all the information I need to troubleshoot any issue inside of their session. So let's say, for instance, they're having a logon problem. I can see that right away from the summary tab, which basically just pulls in all of the key information about the session. And I can then drill into the logon summary. If I wanted to take a closer look at their logon process, I can see each stage of the process, what's going on at the delivery controller, what's going on at Citrix receiver. And keep in mind, this is an actual Cerner power chart session, meaning that, in a situation where, you have Cerner remote hosted option with its data center in Kansas City, you can still see exactly what's taking place at the delivery controller and how that's affecting the session, what's going on during the different stages of the logon process here at the bottom, giving you the ability to expand, see, what domain controller was in charge of authenticating the session, what files were being accessed for this session, even down to the group policies and each individual policy that affected this user session. So for instance, that's how you would troubleshoot, let's say, a logon issue inside of this user session. But what if they're having a problem with in-session performance, as Stacy mentioned? Here you can see really quickly what's driving that, right? You have the ICA round trip time to prove, okay, is this user having a problem or not? If they are having a problem, is it due to a resource problem or a network issue? How we can find that is by looking here at network latency. So for instance, in the case where round trip time is high and network latency is also high, we know that network latency is a problem, and we can rule out the resources for the Cerner session host. You can even here see, especially with the spike in remote users, the connection speed. This is the amount of bandwidth available for Citrix receiver at the user's endpoint. So wherever this user is located, whether it's a home office, whether it's a Starbucks, when infrastructure starts to open back up. But you can see exactly how much this user has as far as connection speed and bandwidth for that session. So then you can point to poor connectivity at the user's endpoint that's actually driving that slowness. You can also see here in the ICA-HDX channel tab, effectively, not only the network latency, connection speed, but what the user is doing inside of their session. So if I expand this here really quickly, I can see all of the bandwidth types that are being used inside of the ICA protocol and how much bandwidth is being used inside each channel. So here I can see thin wire bandwidth, which is the Citrix display adapter. You can see audio input and output bandwidth if, let's say, they're using a Dragon dictation or some other dictation tool inside of their session. I like to point this out because this shows you all of the available channels and what we can monitor and highlight and point to as being the root cause of slowness inside of a session, whether it's printer issues, scanner issues, USB bandwidth issues, things like that that can affect the user's session, but it's typically a blind spot. Our technology is able to break open. Now, I understand there's a lot of information here on the screen, and we haven't even gone through some of the rest of the tabs. Inside of our technology, we've embedded sort of a knowledge base. So it allows you to sort of go through any one of the tabs, and if you need any information about anything or any of the metrics that we collect here, you can click here on this question mark icon, which takes you directly to our knowledge base, where it breaks down the tab that you're on. In my case, it was the summary tab. It breaks down each section of the tab, giving you tips and tricks on how to use this information to troubleshoot. It defines the metrics that are available. So you really have the ability not only to find the information you need, but to understand how this is actually impacting the user session. Now, in this environment, there's really not much going on. So I'm going to flip back to the PowerPoint to show you actual customer screenshots of how we were able to help, or this customer is able to leverage the technology to come up with definitive answers as to why this particular physician was having issues inside of his session. So really quickly, what they were able to do is they flipped over to that session display. They sorted by latency, and they found the doctor that was having a problem. They then clicked down on the doctor's session, and they went through the same process I did, where they looked at the summary tab and they immediately figured out that, okay, it looks like we're having some network related issues because network latency is high. So what did? They drilled into the ICA channel, and they then found that, okay, here's exactly when the doctor was having a problem. There was a large spike in network latency, round trip time, and ICA latency at 3 p.m. And they then, looked at the right-hand side of the screen and saw that that coincided with a drop in connection speed right at that point. So they know, okay, it's a network issue, and it's a network issue at the user's location. So they then got on the phone with this doctor and asked, okay, what actually happened at 3 p.m. in your house? We can see it's not a Cerner problem. It's not an infrastructure problem. It's something at your home. And he then said, oh, my kids got on Xbox because they were done with their homeschooling at that time. So they got on Xbox, as well as the spouse got on her computer as well. So then all these people on the network actually caused this connection speed to drop. And as soon as they got off the network, that there's a sharp spike back up in connection speed, which then made the network latency, ICA latency, and round trip time go back down. So this really allowed them to sort of have that credibility not only with the doctors and the end users, but with the with the CIO, because they have the information that they need to troubleshoot these issues as they happen and document them in the future. Another issue that one of our customers was able to troubleshoot was within the logon process. Specifically, they were having users have logon times well above 250 seconds, which in a healthcare environment is really, really poor and can impact patient care. So what they were able to do is find the affected sessions the same way we walk through inside of the technology. They drill down into the logon duration section And he found that most of the issues was within profile load and specifically the GPO stages. Upon expanding that, they found that they were actually mapping sessions to a drive that was decommissioned, and that causing a timeout in the Citrix infrastructure and the Citrix sort of processing, and then adding 180 seconds to the logon process. This was a quick fix. Of course, they were able to just remove this policy. However, they were having to search through, without this, they would have to search through different tools and consoles and things like that to be able to find this particular issue. But here they were able to find it immediately, collapse the troubleshooting time frame, solve the issue, and really cut down logon times by about 90%. So with that, I'll pass it back over to Stacy to talk about the next criteria.
So now next criteria, as I was saying, is around documentation. And this criteria really builds on what, Yemi, you were just talking about in terms of having that empirical evidence to really identify what that end user experience is. And for this, there's several reasons, as I stated earlier on, that you need to have this documentation. And in order to have strong documentation, you need to be able to provide historical evidence and trends over time. And you need to have that evidence so that you can show if you've made improvements. For example, I was talking to one of our customers. They're actually an MSP provider. They service many health systems. And one of the things that they needed to show was documentation that as they upgraded Citrix receivers, it in fact was making an improvement in the overall experience. And so they had to show that investments in the infrastructure was resulting in a better user experience. By having these reports, they were able to show that that investment was successful. Without the empirical evidence, it becomes hearsay. And all of you on the phone know, it only takes one or two of the right individual to complain about session performance or access to EHR applications before there's already a cloud of things aren't working, things are bad. And so you need to have that evidence to really show what is the experience. The other key piece of this is, especially with the remote working, being able to track productivity and activity, right? And this might not just be what IT wants to do, but it's what your business line managers are asking. They want to know, can my employees successfully access the EHR application so that they can perform their job effectively? And are they actually working while they're at home? And then that third piece we kind of hinted at when we were going through the troubleshooting scenario is really being able to foster collaborative conversations, foster it across your application teams. If you're a Citrix or a VMware Horizon administrator, you want to be able to have constructive conversations with the application team that owns the EHR app, or the networking team, or the server team. Having this empirical evidence allows you to go with them and say, yes, we're having slowness, but it's not because of Citrix, it's because of X, Y, and Z. These reports really empower you to show trends over time, make the right investments in your user experience, and really be able to talk to management about what that experience is. So with Yemi, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you so you can highlight some of those critical reports that we offer.
Thanks, Stacey. Yeah, and to piggyback off your point, Stacey, what we hear from our customers is you can really sort of break them down into two things, especially with this sort of COVID situation. Customers really want to understand, is the environment performing like it should be, right? So how do you get that information? What type of information do you need to prove that? You need user experience information. So are users having good sessions or not? And we talked about, and we went through in that troubleshooting scenario, all of the data that is available. So our customers are able to leverage all of that inside of reports and show historical trends and show what end user experience is, break down the logon times, break down how the ICA channels are being used, as well as tying all of this back to host performance and infrastructure performance and things like that. But I think the number one thing that our customers really need reporting on is, during this time when we are supporting all of our users via Citrix or VMware Horizon, are our users actually leveraging these tools as effectively or using these tools like they should be? Are they actually working? And that's when our customers leverage the activity reports that we've provided inside of our technology to really go through and improve with objective evidence that the user is actually working, users are actually working, and then these reports can be sent over to business line managers, as well as leveraged by IT to understand what they need to support these users. Now, I think some of those worker activity reports, like the user interaction report's been very, very popular, and we'll break that down, peak usage, application usage, so on and so forth. So I actually have an example of a couple of examples of these reports. This one is the highly used user interaction report, and here this is the one of the reports that is typically used by business line managers to understand, okay, any specific user in the environment, how many sessions do they have, what is their active, or how much time within their session are they interacting with the environment. So this is the time that they're actually creating session traffic, right? Moving their mouse or typing or interacting with the system itself. And it shows you the times that they're not interacting with the session. So basically, it's sort of an upgraded idle time per se. And then it shows you sort of the interaction percentage, what applications they use, so on and so forth. So here management has sort of the objective evidence to say this user has been working, or this user just opened up their VDI session and then went for a run or did something else. So this is one that I know our customers have been very, very have been using very well, a lot during this COVID period. This next one is a license usage report. Our customers really like this, especially in this period, just to understand what usage looks like from a delivery group perspective, from an hourly or daily perspective. You want to understand how many licenses do we have, and can we support our sort of critical users on Citrix, or do we need to purchase more licenses, or anything like that to support them? So this is one that a lot of our customers find much value in. Now, we talked about the detail that we collect when it comes to troubleshooting. That translates here into deep metrics on user experience. For instance, here we're looking at a logon duration report that breaks down the different stages of the logon process and how long each one's taking across delivery groups, machine names, applications if needed. So IT now has the ability to point to different sections that they need to tackle to cut down the logon times in the environment. This next one shows logon duration, but this is more of a managerial type report, because this shows management, it's able to objectively show management the trends in logon times and how, okay, IT has been able to cut down logon times, or the implementation of a particular technology has helped reduce logon times, or to prove to management that maybe there's some servers or even hosts that need to be decommissioned because those hosts are all having poor, or any sessions that are on us with those hosts all have poor logon times, and you're able to sort of prove that with these tools here, with the report here as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Stacy to wrap us up.
And one thing I would like to remind everyone on the reports that Yemi just showed, and if you're looking at a third-party tool, an important requirement is that all those reports can be run on demand. They can be run weekly, daily, monthly, so you can schedule them. You can also view them within the actual Goliath application, or you can export them in Excel or CSV files so that you can import them into your choice of reporting tool that you might leverage. So regardless of what tool you're looking for, you want to make sure that those reports are not only historical and provide the granularity you need, but then really provide the power to use it through in your environment and give visibility across other IT teams and management, as we talked about. As we wrap up here, I have a few questions that have come in. If there's any more, please go ahead and provide them in the question box. But before we get to questions, I did want to talk about how, this question typically comes up. How long does it take to deploy? Well, Goliath offers a turnkey implementation service where we can get you up and running in 2 hours or less. And what we're going to do is deliver white glove implementation service, install this product within your environment. Then you're going to work with our technical consultant and identify what are the top reports and alerts that you need in order to successfully monitor and troubleshoot your environment. And so we're going to leverage that out of the box functionality and get you up and running quickly. And then, as I said, first thing as we kicked off this webinar today is a lot of it is the embedded intelligence and automation that serves as a full-time troubleshooting expert in your environment. So you do not have to be a Citrix or a VMware Horizon expert in order to troubleshoot and anticipate these issues. The tool will do it for you. And as Yemi showed, throughout the tool, we have these helpful tips that will allow you to really understand not only the metrics that are being shown, but how to use them in a troubleshooting scenario. Again, all of this is there to try to enable you to get up and running quickly and have a significant impact for your user base from day one. So with that then, let's open it up for questions, and I will remind everyone that there is a survey when you close out, so please complete that survey. Yemi, first question that came in is, with the increase of remote workers, we see our infrastructure can be strained. Can you show at a higher level if you can identify if a server or host is maxing out of CPU power or memory that could impact that performance?
Absolutely, and I think that to your point, this as issues start to come up, or as users start to use the environment, it's really important to have a sort of holistic view to understand exactly what's impacting user experience inside of the environment. So we actually have a view, and I flip over to it here. This is our automatic discovery and dependency map for Citrix. And what this does is, Stacy talked about the embedded intelligence of our technology. It's going to automatically discover all of the components that actually contribute to Citrix in the environment. It then maps them out here and then adds over 300 monitoring rules to the environment. It's going to be monitoring for conditions, failure points, thresholds, and events that can actually cause end user experience issues. And as these issues start to come up, those alerts then drive a heat map structure that is available on the screen. So you can see here if there's an issue with a particular component, it then turns red or orange depending on the severity. And then you can click on the component, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you can then see information about what's causing that. So as you click on individual components, resource utilization, what alerts are driving that color. You can see here the different components like your storefront servers, delivery controllers, PBS servers, and any sort of supporting servers, licensing servers. Here's where you see your domain controllers running Active Directory, even the backend SQL database. So this is one view that allows you to pinpoint exactly what issues are taking place in the infrastructure that are causing slowness or problems inside of the environment. Another view inside of the same ADDM display is the delivery layer. And here, it automatically is going to map out a logical breakdown of the environment. It's then going to sort of tie it all back to the infrastructure, and I'll show you what I mean by that. But first of all, you can see that the embedded intelligence is also not only finding things like thresholds or event conditions that cause problems. Here you can see there's some orphan machine catalogs, which are machines that don't have, or machine catalogs that don't have delivery groups associated with them, which means users won't have access to these machines. As you make these changes and you reconfigure the environment to remediate these issues, this will automatically adjust. So you don't have to worry about reconfiguring the technology in that case or something like that. You can also click on a delivery group, and here it builds out a machine infrastructure. And this environment doesn't have it turned on, but it ties this infrastructure all the way back down to the hypervisor hosts that are supporting the environment. So here you can see user experience metrics per the delivery group, per the different machine catalogs that are available in that delivery group, and back down to the infrastructure components like your hypervisor cluster and hypervisor host. So if, let's say, there's a bottleneck in performance being driven by a host or a specific number of hosts, those hosts will turn red, and you can see objective evidence proving that this host is driving poor performance in the environment. I think hopefully that answers your question, because this view brings in together all of those components holistically in a Citrix-aware context, and allows you to find exactly what's negatively impacting performance in the environment.
Great. Thank you, Yemi. And if that didn't answer your question, just feel free to send a follow-up one and we'll get to it. Next question, and I think, Yemi, you might have a slide in your back pocket because this one often comes up. How are you different from Citrix Director?
Oh, of course. That's one that I think we get on almost every call or every demonstration. Citrix Director is a really good tool. It's a tool, but however, it's a tool that allows you to, defend Citrix and to prove that, Citrix isn't the root cause of the issues. So if you take a look at the slide here, everything here that isn't in red is what Director is going to do a good job of monitoring, right? So, but as we all know, there are a number of different things that impact user experience that Director doesn't have a real view of, right? So you have your locations where the users are logging in from. You have the EHR application. You have the hypervisor platform. You also have those back-end systems and user behavior and devices, network that actually impact the user's ability to access these resources and have productive sessions inside of these resources that really aren't being monitored by Director. And I think that's the major difference, because Goliath will monitor all of these components and tie them all together in a Citrix-aware view so that you can pinpoint exactly what's causing problems and you can sort of document them historically as well. So I think that's sort of the major difference. And there's some other things like historical reporting and sort of the different views that we provide. But I think that's sort of the major difference between our technology, or a technology like ours, and Citrix Director.
Great. Thank you, Yemi. Next question is, do you integrate with third-party systems like a Splunk or a ServiceNow?
Absolutely. Most of our customers leverage our tool with, ServiceNow, Splunk, some IBM products as well. So we can definitely integrate into those systems in a number of different ways as well. So there are options as well.
Perfect. Next one is on reporting. For the end user report on activity you showed, how are you determining what is interaction?
So for the end user interaction report, we have a sort of proprietary process and algorithm for being able to determine how often or how long a user is actually how often the user is actually interacting with their sessions and things like that. So that's something that we do have in our IP, but it's our customers have shown us, told us, and it's been proven to show you it's a really good and accurate depiction of whether or not a user is actually working or
not. Perfect. All right. Next question, similar to the Citrix Director one, but how are you different from Cerner Lights On?
That's a good point. That's a good question. And I also know, I think we have another slide for that, because that's one that we hear a lot as well. Lights On is a really good tool, specifically giving you insight into the Cerner application. So, we're talking about Cerner's remote hosted option, where they're delivering the application from via Citrix from their data center. And you can see here on the chart, Lights On, there's very little overlap. Specifically, it's like the round trip time, ICA round trip time, is what Cerner's Lights On can get. And most of the metrics that are in Cerner Lights On are really focused on transaction times and revenue cycles and things like that within the application itself. What Goliath does is we pull in user experience and all of those components that help in the delivery of the Cerner application to be able to and give you the ability to pinpoint exactly what's causing the problems or what's causing the slowness throughout that delivery, taking into consideration everything outside of Cerner's data center. So hopefully that answers the question.
Perfect. And here's another one that deals with Cerner. Does your system work in a double hop scenario? We use Cerner's hosted RHO for EHR, but they have VMware Horizon on premise. Can you help?
Absolutely. I think that's how a number of our Cerner hospital or customers are leveraging the technology in that situation where there is an on-premises VDI infrastructure, whether that's Citrix or like the question VMware Horizon, and then that's actually being, and then from that VDI session, on-premises VDI session, there is another session to the hosted application like Cerner. Our technology is actually the only technology that can be deployed in Cerner RHO to give you that first leg of the connection, as well as on premises, whether it's that's for VMware Horizon or Citrix, to give you that true end-to-end visibility into everything that impacts the delivery of your hosted application. All of the metrics that we saw here in the demonstration in a Citrix perspective, it's also available in VMware Horizon, so you have that same ability to granularly dig into a user session, find the information that you need to prove that you've sort of found the root cause of the issues, and then report and document on that historically as well. Hopefully that answers the question.
Perfect. And that was the last question that we have. So thank you, Yemi. Thank you for everyone joining today. If you find interest in what we presented and would like a free trial, this would include access to our purpose-built modules for Epic, Cerner, Allscripts, and Meditech to ensure that you can monitor and troubleshoot across EHR applications, the IT delivery infrastructure, and the end user experience. Please email techinfo@goliathtechnologies.com, and we'd be happy to set that up for you. Again, there'll be a short survey at the end, so please provide us with your feedback so we can continually tailor our content to meet your needs. Thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.